Everyone, school board members, those in the audience, our superintendent, Joan, assistant superintendents, and our staff, Carmen, IEC, Georgiana, Shahad. Thank you for being here. Roll call, Joan. Here.
Chris Martinson. Michael Shaw.
Here.
Priscilla Manuelito. Kevin Mitchell.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Joan. We do have 3 members of the board, which makes up a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order at this time. Time, Joan?
6:01.
6:01, Jeanette. Kevin, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the flag, please? Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the clear symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah. Let's proceed with our agenda. The next item is the approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. Board members?
Mr. President, I would like to pull to be voted on separately, the bus and auto parts of June 12, 2019, to be taken out of the consent agenda item.
Okay.
And put on action.
Put on action.
Okay.
And also, President Long, I'd also like to remove permanently item 4A4, which is band instruments of July 9th, 2019.
Okay. With that, is that your motion, Michael?
And then I would, with those changes, I would like to make a motion that we approve the agenda with the changes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and second on the floor to approve the agenda with some changes. Under consent agenda items, number 1, bus and auto parts to be moved to action item, and to delete band instruments. Roll call. Joan?
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Thank you, board members. We go down to item 3, approval of the meeting minutes from June 10th. Board members?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of June 10th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Okay, we approved our meeting minutes of June 10th. We go down to item 4, approval of consent agenda items.
June 28th.
3A,
We've got
3B.
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 Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
I would
Okay,
like to make a motion that we approve the June 28, 2019 special meeting.
okay.
minutes.
Thank you for reminding me, Kevin. Motion's been made to approve the June 28th special meeting minutes. Is there a second? Motion was made by Michael Shaw. Is there a second? Okay. Roll call, Joan?
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. So we've taken care of the 2 meeting minutes. Let's go down to number 4, approval of consent agenda items. 4A, 4B. The consent agenda item is going to be, under A, it's going to be number 2 and number 3.
Yes.
And then, of course, the other one stays the same. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve of consent agenda items 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4F, and 4G. And for under 4A, it'll be item number 2 and item number 3 that we are voting on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schaaf. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, Joan?
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Thank you, board members. We've approved our consent agenda items. Let's go down to study circle. Are there any public comments?
No.
Then, nothing, so we'll go beyond that to reports.
President Long, members of the board, we have several items tonight. The major one is Mr. Harasik, accompanied by I, will also present on data for last year's state assessment. But I wanted to start with a few other items that have happened as of late, just so you're updated on some of the things that are taking place in Gallup McKinley County Schools. As you know, we're going through a rebranding process, and I just want to let you know, since you have voted for the logo, we are going through the process of getting letterhead and those types of things completed for the district before we release that logo. Those items should be done this week, includes letterhead, logos for the cars, vehicles, and a host of other things. And so I just want to let you know that that logo will be made more public this week by week's end, we hope. In addition, I know some of you and I have had a conversation about this, but I don't believe we mentioned it in the last meeting. We found out recently from a PSCOC meeting that the state did release to us $6.3 million to pay off teacherage debt. That $6.3 million will not flow through us. It'll go straight to, I believe, the bank or the DFA for payment. As you know, that was a close to $15 million revenue bond that we've paid almost $40 million on. And we think the state should have paid the 40 out of the 50. But due to our legislative efforts this year, we did get $6.3 million towards that debt, which will be huge for the district in paying off that massive debt on the district. We're really excited about that. We've expressed our appreciation to the legislature, to the governor, but we also want to thank you for your efforts in supporting the legislation that we were pushing this year and the fight we had with regard to impact aid, because it wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have the school board's support.
Mr. Superintendent?
Sure.
I just want to say that, with you saying that our, I would like our board members to know that, our senators and our state representatives have clearly stated that this is not over, and they are going to continue in the fight with us as far as the funding. So, and they said this just this past week. So I just want the board to know that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a fight that will continue. This was a Band-Aid fix for 1 year. There's some things I'm not going to talk about in the public setting regarding the things that we're doing in order to fight for that funding. That is rightfully our students' money. But we'll save that for another day to some extent, but I'll talk a little bit about the LFC meeting that Mr. Mitchell's referencing also. Before I talk about that, I want to make sure you know that we're still awaiting the other several $1 million, which we're hoping to get anywhere from 12 to 14 million, which would be other dollars that we fought for this year to help us with other construction projects, whether it's above adequacy or other types of projects. There is a PSCOC meeting this Thursday. Giovanna and I will be in attendance to that meeting. And part of the thing that they're going to talk about is adequacy standards. And hopefully in that meeting, even though I didn't see it on the agenda, that they talk about this extra money and how they're going to distribute that between the impact aid districts. We're hoping that we get a large chunk of that because we are one of the schools with the most needs. But hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to tell you the other, hopefully millions that we receive for our students and for their facilities. In addition, by the end of the month, I think it's the next PSCO meeting, if Mr. Bond corrects me if I'm wrong, we will be applying for more teacherage housing for our county schools, including Rama, Tehachapi, Twin Lakes, and Thoreau. several units to add to our needs in those areas. And so those would be new facilities. And so we hope, it was on the last agenda. They did not vote on it. They postponed it because I think they're still trying to figure out what those standards are going to look like for housing facilities rather than school facilities. They also mentioned at the LFC this last meeting, last Thursday. The LFC, as I mentioned to you by email, they did invite me to present on two things: the projects that Gallup McKinley County Schools is involved in, and they also asked me to present on the difficulties for property poor districts in raising capital funds. And so that was a great opportunity for us to kind of, again, tell our story in the interim before the next legislative session about what we have to go through as a property poor district versus a property rich district, what they have to go through. And so I got about 10 to 15 minutes plus some questions along with the PSFA and also Arsenio Romero, Dr. Arsenio Romero is the superintendent down in Deming. So we had an opportunity to kind of tell the story from a perspective, again, of a property poor district and what we need and why it's difficult for us to raise funds. And that's where there were some comments there and some other places where this fight's not over as far as fighting for funding. And so we're excited for the momentum that we still have with legislators and with the state and with the governor. We appreciate the governor also. She helped fight for those dollars for us. And so we know that she has been on our side and is working for us also and our students.
Mr. Superintendent, when we're talking about the maybe getting new teacher ridges in Tohatchi and where did you say? Twin Lakes and
Tohatchi, Twin Lakes, Theru, and Rama.
Okay. Is there ever going to be any talk of maybe putting teacher ridges here in Gallup
We've had the discussions about that internally, about the housing issues here in Gallup, in ways in which we can help our instructional staff be able to live in a place where rent is quite high. So we've talked about teachers or potentially in the future some sort of housing addenda to help out with housing. I've had conversations with Gallup Land Partners about something we could potentially partner with on affordable housing for our staff. So there has been conversations about that, but nothing final, just kind of floating ideas across to each other to figure out what our opportunities could be.
Thank you.
In addition, we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to let you know that we are involved in conversations to challenge the New Mexico's disparity analysis for impact aid. So that's going to take us putting together several pieces of data to show that the disparity analysis that they have to submit to the feds is not accurate or not reflective of the state's, I guess you could say, wealth going to different students across the state. And so Giovanna and I have been working on that. Giovanna's running some analysis so that we can get a presentation together and actually hold what they call a hearing with the feds. We have until the 27th of this month to let them know that we want to challenge it, and then we'll have a hearing sometime probably within the next month after that to actually present our case. School supplies will be distributed this year again. Principals know that some of those school supplies, especially for elementary schools students, that those will go home with students, and then a majority of it will stay at the school. So I'm going to let the community know and let the board know that's still continuing, that we've done this for the past, this is our third year, I believe, in providing school supplies for students across the district. In addition, we have over 1,000 students participating in K-5 Plus, which started this week on Wednesday, or last week on Wednesday. And so it was off to a good start, and we hope more students can attend and in the future keep building on that program. Theru Elementary has been started. They've completed most of the foundation, and in some areas they're putting up walls, so let you know that that school's underway and moving forward. I also wanted to let you know the positive comments and information we're receiving from the community about Elevate 2022. The plan that you put together for the community to let them know what the direction of the district is going over the next 3 years, and heard a lot of positive comments. The community hasn't seen that before, and they're excited to see what the board and the district is looking at and in moving forward in with respect to initiatives to improve education. I also wanted to relay to you the appreciation of staff, even families of staff, in the raises and other benefits and free rent in our school district. That has been a big boost to them as far as being able to live in a rural area, and sometimes, like we talked about a minute ago, an expensive area here in Gallup. In addition to that, I wanted to let you know of an initiative we're looking at potentially for next year, is a one-to-one laptop initiative for, at least to start with, some group of students, where we're introducing technology in a one-to-one, where what that would mean is a student receives either some sort of electronic device, whether it's a laptop or whether it's an iPad, where they can do their work in class, but it's, instead of having a cart that goes around, the students actually have an individual device to work with. In addition, we're going to have a presentation next board meeting. Dr. Carrie Lovato will be doing the presentation along with Mr. Rasek and myself. We'll be talking about pathways and initiatives that we have started this year and a little bit more detail on that. I know we've talked about it a few meetings ago with some of the principals. We'll go into a little bit more depth about what we're doing as a district with respect to preparing students for college and career. And next, before I do that, I want to just let you know that we'll let you know soon there's a date. We're going to have a luncheon for stakeholders in the community regarding pathways to kind of introduce that to whether it's private entities or government entities or other colleges or whoever it might be, to let them know about what we're doing with career pathways so that they have a better understanding of the direction that we're going. So that'll be a luncheon. It'll be held here in the boardroom. It'll be about the middle part of August, and we'll have a date to you shortly. I'd like to invite you to that. And before we go on to the data, Mr. Rasek, just one reminder that we do have parent-teacher conferences. We have new teacher orientation on the 31st of July. Mr. Rasek.
You're up, Gerald. Mr. Foster, good to see you. Lady ko khwito chinyan kholo.
One question, Mike. What time would the new teacher orientation be?
We'll get you a copy of the agenda. It's in the morning. Usually we start around 8:45, 9.
It'll be at JFK.
Giovanna, do you remember what that start time is for new teacher orientation? Oh, there it is. 8:30.
8:30 at JFK?
At JFK. So we'd like you to be there if you can, so we can introduce you and say a few words if you're available.
All right. Before we get started with the data, I just want to make sure that we, as always, thank the parents, the staff at the schools, the administrators at the school sites. I also want to thank the board and Mr. Hyatt. It is so important when we have the board's support and the superintendent's support to be able to have the results that I'm going to show you tonight. The other thing I want to make sure that I do is I want to thank Tim, Pauletta, and Giovanna and all the central office employees, because without us working together and without Mr. Hyatt putting that right structure in place, organizational-wise, we wouldn't be able to be presenting what we really have done the last couple of years. And once again, I really want to thank you all, because it is just incredibly powerful. If you don't know, I just want to reiterate, your support makes this possible. So the first slide I'm going to start with is data from last year. And so what you see up there, I just want to remind everyone that, because we don't have the state's current data this year, but we have our current data. This first slide is from last year, where we were number one in ELA of the 10 largest school districts in proficiency growth. And I'll show you a slide at the end that really shows that pretty powerfully. And then we were number 3 in math proficiency of those 10 largest districts. And once again, I want to remind you, we're talking about Las Cruces, Santa Fe, Rio Rancho, Albuquerque Public Schools. And so here's our data, slide on page 3 that you have in front of you. So district-wide in English language arts, so our growth just last year as a district was 3.8%. If you add that to the previous year, it was 9.4% over a 2-year period. Pretty powerful. And you'll see where it beats the state average when we get into some later slides. District-wide in math, we grew 1.5% last year. And if you combine that with the last 2 years, it's 3.6. And once again, when you look at that compared to the state, it's pretty impressive growth, because as a whole, ELA has grown more than math statewide. So we kind of match what the state has done.
And if I could add, I'm going to jump in once in a while.
Anytime you want.
Mr. Rasek. Again, as Mr. Rasek mentioned, we don't have the state data this year. We've heard a little bit from PED that a lot of districts that had been growing are flatlining. We know that we did not flatline. There also has been some discussion about this test being the same as last year. And it is the same questions as last year, just less questions. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But I want to make sure everybody understands that there is comparison from this year to last year in the data.
And I'll just go a little further and say that I know of one district that, and I won't mention names or data, but they actually dropped into the negative in one of the subjects and no growth in the other. And so it's pretty
And this
powerful.
is a district that was moving quite quickly and changed directions in some of the instructional things that they were doing, yet we continued on that path, and we think that's the difference.
Agreed. That's right. Another really important and powerful piece of data on slide 4 is over the last, so when I say 16, 17, 18, it's really over the last 3 years. We have 1,101 more new students proficient in ELA or math. So just think about our district and the challenges that we face. We have 1,101 new more students proficient in ELA or math. Pretty powerful. So now we're going to go into highlighting the individual elementary schools that grew the most proficiency growth-wise last year. So this is slide 5, page 5 in front of you, but look at Twin Lakes. In 1 year, just this last year, they grew 14.89%. Lincoln grew 9.42%. Indian Hills grew 8.65%, Turpin 7.27%, and Rama L 6.72%. And I think the importance there to look at is those schools are from different parts of the district, so it means we're doing some really good things for all kids in our district. And then in math, once again, look who's leading the way: Twin Lakes, Indian Hills, Tobe, Turpin, Thruwell, and Jefferson. And I'm just telling you, the average growth really, if you look at it nationwide and in a rigorous assessment, is really maybe 2%. So they're far outperforming what the average is.
And I want to add, as we look at this data, keep in mind that some of the things that we've noticed is, on average, this is not for every single situation, let's make sure I say on average, that those schools who have become more and more committed to the curriculum, what we call the YAG, but following a sequence of a curriculum that's tied to the assessment, have seen, as they've stayed with that for over a few years, we're seeing greater and greater growth in those schools. So here's some examples of some of those schools that have a higher level commitment in the classroom, making sure that students are learning what they're supposed to learn according to the state, and the assessment's directly reflecting that.
And one additional piece on that, you may or may not remember, but I presented the curriculum to you at a board meeting some time ago. And this is what matters about having a curriculum at the district level. It means that a kid in Crown Point, Sagai, or Lincoln, or Maimira has access to the same rigor. So it's telling the teachers the standards they have to teach, but not how to do it. And sometimes you face resistance from people with that, but it's the right thing for kids. And just to reinforce Mr. Hyatt's point is, that's why you have these results. It's the people that are committed to that document. Now we're going to do the schools in elementary over 2-year growth. So Twin Lakes, almost 20% growth in 2 years' time. Rama Al, 18.5, Roosevelt 12.5, then you have Turpin and Stagecoach. So that's 2-year growth. It's pretty powerful. Math, if Twin Lakes leading the way again, over a 2-year period, Red Rock, Turpin, Indian Hills, and Rama Elementary. Then we'll go into our mid-schools. 1-year growth. Slide 6 in your handouts, page 6. Gallup Mid at 6.5. Then you have JFK and Chief Manuelito, all showing positive growth in math, in ELA. And then in math, it's John F. Kennedy and Tohatchi Middle School. And 2-year growth.
If I could add one quick thing, JFK used to be in the bottom, and so they have made some significant gains this past year. Just as an example of somebody that turned things around, that school really made a big change. We appreciate the staff there.
And so there you have it for English language arts, Chief Manuelito, Gallup Mid, Tohatchi Mid through, and JFK. Just positive growth, pretty strong, solid growth in the 2 years for ELA. And then for math, it's Chief Manuelito, Gallup Mid, JFK, Crown Point, and Tohatchi Mid. Once again, a good representation of the district, without question. And now we'll move into the 9 through 12 high schools, 1-year growth in ELA. So I'll talk about Navajo Pine in a minute. So when we get to the 2-year growth, I'll look at Navajo Pine's 1-year growth in ELA at the high school level. Gallup at 8.16. Then you have Rama at 7.62. Crown Point at 7.48, and Mayamira at 5.27. And then in math, you have Mayamira leading the way with Rama and Gallup Central. And math is a challenge in high school because you're talking about Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. It's a little more complicated. So those are very positive numbers. And then the 2-year growth, the school I want to point out is I want you to look at Navajo Pine. So they grew 15% this year, and their growth over 2 years is 9.4. So that means 2 years ago they had a negative. They went negative in English language arts. So if you look at that, they actually went down 6% 2 years ago, went 15 this year, so that's where you get the 9 from. But that tells you that Mary Ann Sherman is committed to doing what is best for kids, and she stayed the course in following what we should do for kids. So she just had an incredible gain over that period. And then you have, for math, Mayamira, Rama, Gallup High, and Crown Point. And I want to go back up. Just look at Gallup High and Mayamira also, and Rama. 20% over 2 years in ELA, 19.3 for Gallup, and 18.93 for Mayamira. Those are high school level, just in 2 years. Think about how many more kids that is that are proficient in
And I think
English language
if you look at the data across the state, you look at high schools, there's typically not that big of a growth rate for high schools. They tend to stay fairly steady.
That's right.
To see those kinds of numbers at our secondary schools is a huge accomplishment.
Correct, it is. And I do want to tell you, at large high schools, which we have both of ours up there, it's even harder because you have so many students that you have to work with. It's just harder. Okay, so GMCS versus the state. So in 2014-15, that's where the state was, and that's where we were. And then that's where the state was in 15-16, and we were. And if you just look, see how we've closed the gap. And I have a nice slide at the very end that really shows it profoundly. And then we have where we're at now in ELA. We don't know the state's percentage yet because they haven't put out a document on the state average. And that's for ELA. And then once again for math.
If I could just comment out really quickly on that ELA data. And as you've heard me say over and over and over, districts like Hobbs, like Santa Fe, those are districts that we think this year, we were really close to passing them last year. We're going to pass them this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about this at the end, but when you look at a district who was at the very bottom and now we're reaching at least the middle of the pack, and then we'll hopefully continue on, that's significant improvement over a very short period of time, and has been recognized by many people as far as the growth. And so we appreciate accolades for our students. The students are the ones that take the test, and they're the ones that are performing well.
And then in math, you can see where the state was in 14, 15, and where we were. And this is where the state was last year and where we were. And now we're at 16.42. And once again, I'll point this out in a nice little graph at the end. And then we're still waiting on the state to give us this current year state average. And the next couple of slides are going to be comparing McKinley Academy and Middle College with our district-wide data. And so on this slide right here, it's English Language Arts. And so all of our students that went to McKinley Academy and took the PARCC exam, their average, that's their proficiency rate. There's not many schools in the state that can say that they scored a 77.86 proficiency. Middle, and how many students do we have at the McKinley Academy that probably took this?
Last year was probably 215.
250, okay. Middle College, high, they scored 73.3% on the PARCC ELA assessment. And then that's the district-wide average for our district. So McKinley Academy, Middle College, GMCS. I want to wait till you see the math, because the math's pretty cool. It's actually really powerful and shows you that McKinley Academy is just a huge success. So in math, McKinley Academy proficiency rate 48.68% in their very first year. Middle College 15.79. So just look at that. McKinley Academy 48.68. Middle College, 15.79. Of just incredible, right? What we did compared to Middle College. And then, this is for me one of the most, it's just really powerful. And I keep using that word, it's just true. So Middle College, 15.79. Our district, thousands of students, had a district-wide proficiency rate of 16.42 in math, higher than Middle College. And we serve a very different population. Very different population.
Let that sink in. We've been talking about some of the problems that we've had, and I think this proves. When you give kids opportunities and you provide them a well-rounded education, and you're doing your best to follow the rules and follow the law, good things can happen in a district and in a school. So we appreciate the efforts of those students in McKinley Academy and across the district. So again, run up and up, and we'll continue to push and adapt and adjust. But we're having a lot of success with our students because we have a set curriculum. We're doing those things that are best for students.
And what are the numbers from McKinley Academy? I think we're pushing close to 400 for this current year, right? We had 200 some. We got to be over 300 at least, enrollment-wise.
For McKinley Academy next year, will be over 350 students.
350 students. Just
projected.
And then the final, this is where it really shows. So this shows it profoundly in ELA. The blue is the state trend. The orange is Gallup McKinley County Schools. And just see the gap and how it is narrowed. Faster than most districts in the state. And once again, it's really just the support of the board, the support of the community and parents, the school sites, and we're really committed to the work, and we work very efficiently. I mean, we work hard, but we're really efficient, and we're allowed to do what's best for kids because that's our focus at the end of the day. And then in math, you still look at the gap in math, 17 to 9, and we don't have the state's data for this year. But just look how even here we've closed that gap on the state. Any questions for me?
Questions?
No question, just one comment. I think you're doing a great job, the whole staff, and the students are doing a fantastic job. I'm really proud of all they accomplished.
Mr. President, I just wanted to say that just by looking at all these, the graphs and everything, this is amazing. And it's so good to see that our students are doing so much better. And so, I really thank our teachers that are out there and working as hard as they are under our administration and getting this done.
Yes, great job to all the staff here at the office, central office, the teachers out at the schools, the principals. I just need to tell them to stay the course. Like Gerald said, not to deviate from what has been established. These are tremendous data. And I think our school district is moving in the right direction. Appreciate that.
And I just want to reiterate is Gallup McKinley County Schools, to put it in perspective, is we were the lowest performing district in the state past 5 years ago. And I think that we need to continue to celebrate our students' success. Like I said, we're likely to pass Hobbs and Santa Fe this year in reading proficiency. I think that's something that we need to share with our students as much as we can so they can celebrate their success. I think sometimes in our community we have a perception that we're still not there yet, and we still do have a lot of work to go, but we have come a long ways. Our students are progressing, they are achieving, and we need to let them know that they're doing well.
Mr. Superintendent, do you have an idea of when we might be getting the data and results from the state?
President Long, Mr. Mitchell, they mentioned that they would have it in July. As you know, we have a new administration, and so they're calculating as far as their time frame for data is different. Like I said, we've only heard a little bit about what they say is happening in the state as far as trends. So we don't know for sure. We'll reach out again. Again, they told me about the first or middle of July. We're there right now, so maybe any day. But they have not given us any official. They have not given us any official notice of when they're going to release state data. Because that's powerful too. We always want to compare ourselves, especially those top 10 largest districts. We're right in the middle of that pack, and so we can tell where we fall. And then when people do better than us, we want to look at what they're doing, see if there's anything we need to tweak, and then adapt as we need to. But like I said, the only information I've got is that several districts that were progressing, there was some trend of flatlining. So that's the only piece of information I have.
How will the new testing for the coming year, how will it affect scores and all that?
Currently, President Long, Mr. Schaaf, they're not, as far as 3 through 8, third grade through 8th grade, there's going to be some tweaks, but they're still going to be using the same kinds of questions in assessing students. What they're talking about now is what they're going to do at the high school level, and that's why they appeared to introduce the ACT and SAT. And although we have some concerns about how that might be implemented, it's kind of a wait and see. I don't think any total final decision that they can say absolute, it's rubber stamped and put on the table is in play yet, but that appears to be what the move is, to go that direction. And so, yeah, you won't be able to, it'll be apples to oranges in comparison. You can't compare the two assessments. They're really two totally different assessments at the high school level if they go that direction. But we will have comparable data, grades 3 through 8.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. And our superintendent, I think we need to continue to express appreciation to our staff down at the schools, continue to encourage them. I think they're doing a great job educating our kids. Appreciate that. Yeah, let's go down to 5.
Board reports?
2 board reports. Any reports from board members?
Mr. President, I just wanted to say that I did attend the LASC meeting that was held in Cloudcroft. I really feel that our superintendent did a great job as being on the panel there as far as his presentation and giving answers back to questions that were given to him from the legislators that were on that committee. I think he did a really good job, and, I think that, some of them, it was a real eye-opener for them in some of the things that were presented. And then I also attended the New Mexico School Board leadership training. And I just want to say that, the whole first day, there was so much talk. The opening up of it, the training, was done by the law firm and that took on the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit, and they gave a whole presentation. And then there was a lot of talk on impact aid. So mostly, a lot of the stuff that was presented at our law school conference was pertaining to our school districts. And I really appreciated that, and I thought that, that they did a good job as far as presenting information to other schools. Let's see. So with that, I just kind of wanted to, I'll just leave it at that, and I'll just get with the superintendent on some of the stuff that I have questions about, and some of the stuff that, new things that were presented that I guess we can go on along as a whole board. Thank you.
Shane, thank you, Kevin, for that report. The other reports? Then, okay. And then, number 3, we have notices and communications. Board members, you can read that on your own. Let's go to new business A, approval to elect board officers per policy B-0900 BDA, board organizational meeting, electing new officers, first meeting in July.
I would like to make a motion that
Okay, wait. I guess since we're going to be electing new officers, let me handle it this way. I want to open nominations for board president.
I would like to make a nomination of Charles Long for board president.
Okay,
I'd like to make a nomination for Priscilla Manuelito.
okay. So we have 2 nominations.
I would like to close nominations.
Okay. Motion's been made by Michael Schaaf to close nominations. Roll call, John?
I second.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
To close the nomination. Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Okay. Now will you vote?
Vote on first nomination.
Yeah, vote on the first nomination.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Vote for, was your Charles Long?
Okay.
For Charles Long as board president.
Roll call.
All those in
Roll
favor?
call.
Roll call?
Mr. Mitchell?
No.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Priscilla Manuelito? Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
No.
Mr. Long?
No. Thank you.
Mr. Charles Long, President.
Agushi, thank you.
Elect.
With that, let's go to,
Vice.
I'd like to open up nominations for the vice president of the board.
I would like to make a nomination of Chris Mortensen for vice president.
Okay. Any other nominations?
No.
Agushi,
I would like to make a motion to close nominations.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Agushi, nominations for vice president has been closed, and by acclamation, Chris Mortensen will be vice president of the board. And now I'd like to open nominations for secretary. I'd like to make a motion to have Michael Schaaf as the secretary. Any other nominations?
No.
I would like to make a motion, we close nominations.
For the secretary? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Kashim. With that, I guess by acclamation, Michael Schaaf is the secretary of the board. Thank you, board members. We've taken care of that. Let's go to new business B, approval of the 2019-2020 graduation dates.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the 2019-2020 graduation dates as stated in the packet.
Okay,
I'll
is there a
second that.
Kashim. There's a motion by Michael Schaaf to approve the 2019-2020 graduation dates, second by Kevin Mitchell. Roll call, Joan?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes, thank you, board members, we approve that. Let's go to new business C.
President Long, can we do the action that we postponed till new business first? Is that okay? So we don't forget that, since this last item is a discussion item. As you remember, at the beginning of the meeting, we moved 4A1
Yes.
to the action item agenda, bus and auto parts of June 12, 2019.
Okay,
If we could vote on that one at this time before the discussion.
bus and auto parts,
Yes.
board members?
Do-
Is anybody going to talk?
Excuse
Giovanna?
Yeah, we can give you a little background. This
Okay.
happens every year, every few years, but we'll talk about it.
President,
You have the floor, Giovanna.
President Long, members of the board, superintendent, members of the audience, I'd be happy to answer any question that you have regarding the bid. It's just an annual bid, and we typically select those vendors that we believe that'll provide the best product at the best price in the most convenient way. So large retailers are typically able to ship very quickly and deliver at a low to no cost. Other vendors that are located within the city of Gallup also deliver, or we're able to get those parts very quickly in order to repair our buses as timely as possible.
Questions, board members?
I'm trying to look for the...
Under bids.
Sure, yeah, and it should be your very first bid. It's number 36719MA. So if there are no other questions, I would advocate if the board sees fit to approve this bid.
Board members? I want to entertain a motion to approve
I would like to make a motion, we approve.
the bus and auto parts. Motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Rasheen. Roll call, John?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Abstain.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Okay, we approve that. Thank you, Giovanna.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you so much. Ayot on hiltaha. That's all what I would get. New business C, board policy change, G-1511/GBGE-R.
I can go. President Long, members of the board, invite Mr. Bond up to the podium. As you know, we are always looking at board policy and places in which we can make our board policy either more appropriate or better or fit the law. And so I'm going to let Mr. Bond talk a little bit about this item as we review it, and hopefully in the future we can take a vote. Mr. Bond.
President Long, board members, and audience, I'd like to give just a little bit of background. So in our board policy, we have this regulation or policy that talks about workers' compensation. And so over the last 2 or 3 years, we have been in discussion with the workers' compensation reps. And we found a couple of years ago what we were doing, according to some law firms, we shouldn't have been doing. And so we're trying to straighten some of that out. So really what was happening is when a person gets hurt on the job, so they go on workman's comp, and normally what happens, and this is according to workers' compensation policy, so a person can go out on workers' comp or out on their own leave for 7 days, which 2 of those days would include a weekend. And so if you get hurt and you're off work for 5 days and a weekend, and then you are still hurt, then workers' comp begins to pick up the payments. What we were doing was we were, according to our policy, having them sign over their worker comp checks to us, and then we were paying them their full salary. And what we had an opinion from a law firm, and what they basically said was that we were taxing their workers' comp checks by having them sign them over to us. And so we quit doing that a year and a half ago, maybe, because we found that that just didn't seem right. Now, workers' comp said what we were doing was okay, but this opinion from a law firm said we shouldn't be doing that. And so what we have decided to do, and a couple of things with the policy, first of all, workers' comp has suggested and encouraged that our board policy not be specific about how we collect all of the money or work through workers' comp, but it should be a general policy about what happens when a person goes on workers' comp. And so if you look at the two policies, you will notice that the newest one, and I believe that's the first page in your handout, does not talk about the 7 days and all of those sorts of things, because those are supposed to be guidelines that the district follows, not necessarily board policy. Okay? And so what we are hoping to change the policy to, and we can discuss that, and you can ask me questions about it, is that what we would like to do, and this is what our rep from Workers' Comp has encouraged us to do, and this is what most businesses and other school districts do as well, is if a person goes out on Workers' Comp, if they're injured on the job, they get their 5 days of leave. If they have sick leave, they get to use that sick leave. And then the weekend would be included on that. And then the 8th day, they would go on Workers' Comp and would not receive anything from us. And that, again, is the way most businesses work. And what Workers' Comp does is they pay 2/3 of a person's salary up to a certain amount. What this does is this encourages employees to get back to work as soon as possible. And kind of what we were doing is we were encouraging employees to basically stay out of work because they were getting their entire salary. And as long as they had leave, this could go on for a year or two. And we've actually had employees that have done that to us. And so what we want to do is we want to change the policy to what Workers' Comp has suggested. And that means changing board policy somewhat to talk about how they go about doing this, what they need to do when they get injured, how much time they have to report the accident, and those sorts of things. And then our guidelines would change to after 7 days, on the 8th day, we would stop paying them. Workers' Comp would pick up their 2/3 of the salary if it went that far. So that's where we're at with that, and really, we have to change board policy one way or another because we can't do what the board policy did say. And so we're here to present a new policy that is in line with what the Workers' Comp rep has suggested and has also explained that most school districts and businesses do. So if you have any questions, I'm open to answer those if I can.
And if I could just add, this is a discussion item, so we'll bring this back to you. This is a time for questions if you have anything, or if you have questions in the interim between the next meeting, please let us know.
Questions? Board members, no questions?
I just want to say, when you make the changes to the policy on this, could you make sure we have copies of that and then letting us know what actual changes were made to the policy?
Yeah, what we will do is we will actually change regulation or policy. We will send that off to our policy, what do we call them, Joan? Whoever.
Policy service, or-
Okay,
We-
but there will be guidelines that go along with that are more specific in detail about what happens, and definitely we would get that to you.
I appreciate
So,
it, Tim.
President Long, Mr. Mitchell, are you asking what, let me make sure I understand your question. Tim probably understands it better than I did, but are you asking what was the policy and what specific changes were made?
Yeah,
Because
just-
the old policy, I believe, is the second page.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a whole different policy, so it's not
It'll be
like
a
you can
whole
line
new-
it out. It's not like scratch out, like when the laws change, you scratch it
Yeah.
out and then you add the words. There's a whole different, that's why we did it two separate documents.
And I think
So the
that's,
first page is the new policy, second page is what it was, but it's drastically different.
And I'm not sure how long that policy has been in place, but probably quite a while. 7, 8 years,
I'd
10
say
years, I don't
at
even
least
know how long.
Probably 10 plus
Yeah.
years.
I think,
Okay.
I'm like, Kevin, I wanted to see the policy with the strikeovers where the language is going to be deleted and inserting new language.
Okay, and what that would really be is the new guidelines, but we can provide the new guidelines that would accompany the policy, yes. Those would not actually be in board policy, but they would be guidelines that we would use to,
I think what you're saying is take the old policy, do the strike-through, and the
Yes.
additions within that policy, so you can see exactly where the strikes
Yeah.
were and what
Yes.
additions there were.
Yes.
We can do that. It's going to be a lot, but we can do that.
Okay.
Not that it's easily doable, but.
Thank you.
okay? Anything else?
That's about it, I guess. No other question, board members? Then, yeah. Thank you, Tim.
All right, thank you.
Sad. I had to go through a whole board packet trying to look for information.
Sorry,
But it's
on-
good.
It's on the end of the agenda.
Yeah, I know. Okay, that was a discussion item. Board members, keep this in mind. At another date, I'm pretty sure we will be taking action on these, the change on this board policy. Now, let's go down to new business D. Approval.
Executive session first.
Approval
did
to execute
done.
a new superintendent's employment contract extension. I want to go, entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I would like to make a that we put this on hold until after the executive session, and then we move to executive session.
Okay, motion's been made by Michael Shaw to go into executive session. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Kevin. Roll call. Joan?
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
6:59.
6:59. We will be going into executive session. Board members, Andy, good to have you here. Can you join us, please?
I
Mine is on.
It's on.
I would like to make a motion that we come out of executive session into regular session.
Okay, is there a second? Motion was made by Michael Shaw to come out of executive session. Is there a second? Second?
Second.
Gushi, roll call, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
7:36.
Thank you, board members. We discussed what was on the agenda in our executive session, and there were no decisions made. I believe the next item on our agenda is the approval of a new contract for our superintendent with an extension. Before we consider this item, I would like to provide some background for the public. The Board of Education recently evaluated the superintendent's job performance and provided him with a formal evaluation. The board's evaluation reflected that the Board of Education is satisfied with the progress of the school district and with the work performance of Mr. Hyde as our superintendent. The board looks forward to continuing to work with Mr. Hyde into the future to continue making further progress and strides for the school district students. As such, the Board of Education wanted to make a commitment to this ongoing relationship with Mr. Hyde, reflecting our trust and confidence in him and providing Mr. Hyde with sufficient time and security to continue his work on behalf of the school district and this board, including sharing the legislature's finding that all school personnel are not sufficiently compensated. Thus, the Board of Education is considering a new employment contract for Mr. Hyde. I will now entertain a motion to approve a new employment contract for Mr. Hyde, extending it one more year and increasing his salary commensurated with his evaluation and the legislature's increasing of the salaries of all school personnel.
I would like to make a motion that we approve to execute a new superintendent's employment contract extension beginning July 1st, 2019, with increase of salary.
Okay, motion's been made by Michael Shaw to approve a new contract for our superintendent with a one-year extension and a salary increase. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second made by Kevin Mitchell. Roll call, John.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Thank you, board members. We've approved that, and I believe that we have concluded our business.
I would like to make
Hold
a
on,
motion.
hold on. Mr. President, before we adjourn, I would like to ask that Board Member Manuelito be excused for this meeting due to family emergency. She is tending to her father at this time, so I would ask to have her excused.
Question.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay, motion's been made by Michael Schaaf to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Second by Kevin Mitchell. Roll call, Joan?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
7:40.
We are adjourned at 7:40.